Hi everyone, I'm 2. Come to see a regular white-collar paying for the family today. Illegal sanctions. The story begins. You are a regular white-collar, is a small leader of a company, with a stable income, gentle Yun Hei's wife, and 2 handsome sons. A typical middle-class family, or the enviable perfect life. It all came to nullification in one night. This on the phone. You can come home to the oldest son who just won the ice hockey game. Taught you in a remote gas station refueling hands. The eldest son goes to the convenience store to buy some and suddenly broke into the mouth of the clerk who came up and shot and killed by a gang of masked gangsters. Let one of the elder sons be able to join the gang, at the instigation of others. The eldest son was tragically cut his throat. One saw this scene, with no regard to everything washed up the past, but ASEAN looks to achieve its purpose, driving away in a frenzy of laughter. Only that murderer is undecided. One step slower. One of the Benacor Proxima events pulled off his face to see the murderer's face. It is a pity that the murderer died in the end, and you may end up rescuing your son dead. Their world has become unusually gloomy. One family is distraught. One and the wife will be holding together late at night for the benefit of crying. That is, the various classes. These sons will also see pictures of their older brothers. Silently shed tears. Soon, murderer Little Daw was arrested. As I have spoken of the murderer who cannot be in power without hesitation at a moment. But what about? Like the law-abiding citizens who have come into contact with the forward, there is a lack of other witnesses and key evidence in the case. The gas station is not monitored, the murder weapon could not be found, etc. Only Nick, one of the public prosecutors, is looking forward to the outcome of a prosecution deal. The killer would also be sentenced to 3 to 5 years at most. Look at the court where the murderer was disqualified. Well, this is what you think of your oldest son. He wants the killer to pay his life. He stated in court that, at that time, the heavens did not see the face of the killer, since there is no other evidence. Murderer Small Hit is currently released. Kojima, who was acquitted, received a warm welcome from other gang members. Strong is also officially recognized by the proportion of inputs from the fire sale. It is worth mentioning that Small Play very proportional circle is pro-brothers such as Real Confused, and Nick was in the distance watching these men who killed their sons and killed them, and he was determined to be in person. The idea of remuneration. He followed all the way. These people learned that Little reached the place of residence, then went home and took a dagger in his pocket. After dark, Asia came to squatting near the small DA shelter. Didn't wait long to see. Like lay down the garbage, a flat after a bit in the mood to get off trailing. You're not a killer agent. Actually, he was nervous to the pole, not only for a sister to see a place where the yellow-blue turned around. Well, at the sister glance, there is no excessive stay. One found the idea that the garbage was being poured. Nick was also hesitant to not do it. As a result, like the great bow apologies are not. And a raucous look towards the education class, such anger and hatred occupied Nick. Local pounced on the past. After a fight, Nick killed the larger one, and some passed through to see the island actually. Then the battle-hardened pulled out the dagger, quickly fled the scene, received him, for example, fingerprints and blood on them. In the future, compare thrown into the river. I came home I had nothing to do with it, but it is about to bring down the abyss of your already broken family impression. The next day tense, Black J found Nick. She told the news that she was killed once. One was, of course, mush. But the black tackle noticed that one yesterday and the little big guy were left on his hands. The hurt, nor did he say much, maybe feel that little miscellaneous is sin deserved. On the other side, Small, reaching various proportions, also learned the news that the younger brother was killed. Very angry, he is to find out the killer to avenge his brother. He initially ruled out reprisals from other gangs, and the nearest thing is between killing you and your son. It's just happened to see you the other day. Proportions of one of the men's sister. Through a photo in the newspaper, she asked her sister, Daiji. One appeared near the scene of Rafa at the time. It is basically possible to determine that one is the murderer. Nick File, who walked down the street yesterday. Generations staring at same. Nick had a sense early. Walking past the fatal blow. Proportions of people look untold. Began to blatantly shoot on the street. A panicked escape all the way. To run faster. Pack your phone to people midway through the way. Proportions at L. With guns all the way. One escaped all the way to the stop of the parking. Proportions begin to let the men go after their heads. A sale price came directly to the roof of the building through the stairs. Nick, who ran to the top of the building, rushed to hide. Then again, If the car was the opening house attracted faint attention, the grades do not let the river wrestle up. From the outside reached a car or in the middle of it. The handbrake of the car was put down. The car began to flow to the edge of the roof. Moment at the last moment paid the opponent himself to escape the birth. What about being able to regret? Follow the car. One was crushed by a fall. Upward hunted proportions of people. See this scene of proportions outside fraud out of you. You can escape quickly by car. This matter is raised to think of the unwillingly proportions of people. Only got to temporarily convoy. Soon, the scene investigated by the police locked a group of proportions according to eyewitness descriptions, and you get away again threatened. The proportions let a small one of the men go to Nixon. He threw away the picture inside the suitcase. Nick's family were all paddled. There's a phone behind the red. A pound hit the past. How about it? Both sides of the straits began to soar. Again lost a man of proportions. The goal has been extended to a piece of the whole family, obviously, but you're just really brilliant proportions, can be unscrupulous, but he doesn't. If the family gets hurt again. He was afraid to imagine the consequences of this. Huxley called his wife. After learning that the wife was 50, call the sheriff again. Avenger said of the water that his whole family was under threat. And ask the black neighborhood school will have their son a heartfelt immolation. Rush home. The police have kept the door. Well, in all peace. He hurried to put all doors and windows on the premises for a moment. Sheriff Avenger felt that after learning of the situation, accessories bury you and should not Asahi proportional fire provokes war. The interverbal table reveals himself knowing that it was Nick who killed the wife of the small big bank. After trade, he also complained about what Nick had done. One does not think he is wrong. Ming is more than a group of unprovoked homicides. The law is not designed to do anything wrong with the killer's own hand. Hay Street doesn't subscribe to Nick's approach, but still send people to the disaster. You can be near the house. For example, they are already wanted, then a group of people. Let a temporary person come. Heartless sleep at night. Nick heard the move. Get down on the window for a look. The police officer with the hand outside has been killed. She also quickly encountered the proportion of innovators, or to protect the family, one and they dabbed together. However, the wife and son are proportionally closed. One looked at the proportions shooting and killing the wife and son. Himself was also shot by proportions. Fell to the ground. Thankfully, you can save the psyche after a rescue. And try to warn him about this, because the pay kills the little regret. As a result, your family has suffered the destruction of the top. There is no winner in her grievous revenge. But to be outraged, hate occupies the inner one. How to listen, to go in and push forward and warn for a moment. His young son was also very willing, after trying to salvage it. But still unconscious, maybe never waking up again. Nick then rushed to the ward where his young son was, looking at the dazed little son. A sorrow comes from it. He doesn't understand. Is it sad to watch that the murderer of his son doesn't get the punishment it deserves? No, he wants revenge. For the wife. For the sake of two sons. One more wounded body slipped away from the window and started its own path of vengeance. He took out all his savings, then based on the last time the number of the call found the proportions to the bar where they often meet from the bar. The owner, being one, in addition to the proportion of a group of people, took it back. Blackwater arms merchant Fatboy bought a lot of weapons and ammunition there, just as he was preparing to leave. I didn't think that the fat man was proportional and that Kojima's father was about to have a bad war. The fat man actually let go of one. The reason is that he looked at the proportions early. The proportions are nothing to do with him. While the front proportion came to find a fat man. The relationship between father and son is indeed very warm, but a father like a fat man is really rare. Everything was ready for a moment back in the self-storage warehouse. Kicked off the hair. Farewell from his politics and past at this time. Transformed from an ordinary white-collar to a man who paid for his family. Soon, you may have killed a proportion of people's homes. There was only a small summit here that forced out of their mouth a drug production dens where everyone else was in proportion. One must also regret the proportions to call. It is officially down the war book. Then it has always resulted in the punks ratio. I learned that Nick actually did not have a child. And find yourself vengeance. Filled with steel cable poison dens. Didn't think of his own father. The fat man came. Fat people are coming to tell the proportions. You can find them for revenge. He may still not wish to die in his heart, but what is said on your mouth is very hard to hear. Proportional and unbearable. Killed the fat guy directly. And their golden son. You see here one step. Drove straight through the inside and hit the whistled little saffron, and then killed all the way inside. Shoot a chap who hasn't figured out the condition yet. I drink the remaining 2 unfurled a shootout. 2 heels split their heads to pursue Ben. A chance to base it again when Nick looks for the last little red. Proportions. The 2 sides immediately fired shots at each other. Both men had several items. At this point, the last punks from behind them hit Nick in the neck. To Phoenix also die for you. 1 in proportions both suffered serious injuries. Until the bullets were done, the 2 men were sitting on the cracked initiative that stopped the exhaustion of each other. Proportions opened up to a present look. Say, look at what you look like now. What a difference does the red door make? However, Nick also has a bullet-loaded pistol on his body. The results speak for themselves. A continent gets full proportions headed by gangster gang. Continents reported Nikoto's exhibition area back in their own home. Turn on the TV, looking at the home video. Reminiscing of the good times, often black reception people felt him. Hopefully you might hold up. His young son wrote to hear the news, looking at the heartwarming home footage. A bared smile. The story ends here. You're not at the end of the movie, but it's life and death. The identity of Electric Nick differs from previous films of this kind. There are no special abilities. Is an ordinary person. When one starts paying for the eldest son, but in turn came the greater trauma of the family, compared to the murderer not getting the punishment he deserves. Obviously this result loses much more. But who would worry about his son for nothing about the city? That movie repeatedly referred to the paradox point of the city's Avenger defying revenge, still accept the unwillful result of maintaining the family from greater harm. Don't forget to detect transforming concerns. Next period. Goodbye to get outside.